Tonight, devastation in the U.S. state of Mississippi after a deadly tornado kills at least 25 people and leaves dozens injured. The tornado obliterated many buildings in several small towns. Survivors described the force of the storm.
We had to get ourselves into the middle part of the house, and we did, and we got in there, and obviously it was coming right behind us because as soon as we got in there, we heard a big boom.
We'll be live with our correspondent in Mississippi. Also tonight, the MI5 spy whose secret talks with the IRA helped end 3 decades of violence in Northern Ireland. After the stabbing of a 16-year-old boy in Northampton, 2 teenagers appear in court charged with murder.
Can she finish? She's being hunted down, but it doesn't matter.
And England thrashed Scotland, scoring 10 tries in their opening match of the Women's Six Nations. Good evening. The state of Mississippi in the U.S. has been hit by one of its deadliest tornadoes ever, killing at least 25 people. Whole neighborhoods in several rural areas have been destroyed, with the mayor of one town saying it had essentially been wiped out. As emergency services try to reach the wounded, tens of thousands of homes in the wider region have been left without electricity. Here's our North America correspondent, David Willis.
This is all that remains of the Mississippi town of Rolling Fork. Heavy vehicles were picked up and tossed around like toys after the twister touched down, all but wiping this tight-knit community off the map.
We got a new scan coming in here as we speak.
The storm struck at night, the warnings too late for the residents of Rolling Fork and nearby Silver City.
Oh, man. Dear Jesus, please help them.
Around 8:20, we had the tornado sirens going off, warning the people to, take cover. It happened so fast. Right now, we got multiple homes damaged in the Silver City area, also in other parts of the area of the county.
Some survivors likened the sound and the ferocity of the storm to an incoming freight train.
We had to get ourselves into the middle part of the house, and we did, and we got in there, and obviously it was coming right behind us because as soon as we got in there, we heard a big boom.
Even those used to tracking such malevolent forces of nature say the impact took them by surprise.
All the ingredients were in place for a large-scale tornado outbreak, fast-moving supercell storms moving at speeds of up to 60 miles an hour. And we were actually chasing storms for about 4 to 5 hours during the day. None were going tornadic. And then right at sunset, it was like a switch was flipped from off to on.
A massive search is now underway for survivors. President Biden described the images as heartbreaking and said he and the First Lady were praying for all who'd lost loved ones. David Willis, BBC News, Washington.
Let's speak now to our North America correspondent, Sophie Long, who is in Mississippi for us. Sophie, this is tornado season, but this one has caused extraordinary devastation.
Yeah, March, April is tornado season, so it's certainly not uncommon for them to strike. What was unusual about this one was its strength and its length. Many tornadoes pass in 5 to 10 minutes. This was on the ground for over an hour, smashing through towns and cities over 100 miles. Now, we're just south of Rolling Fork, which you might have seen in David's report there, a town that was almost obliterated last night. And we're just about to start following the path of devastation cut by the tornado. But as you drive through Mississippi, it's evident that it's not just the weather factors that created that violent storm that resulted in such loss of life. First of all, it happened at night. It was a nocturnal tornado, which meant many people were sleeping. They perhaps didn't hear alerts, didn't move to better forms of shelter. But also, it struck in a very socially vulnerable area. This is one of the poorest parts of the poorest state in America. And a lot of people live in mobile or manufactured homes that simply aren't strong enough to withstand a tornado of that force. So it also, while it makes storms like that much more difficult to weather, it also makes them harder to recover from. Now, shelters have been set up for those who've lost their homes, and thankfully, well, we now know that the 4 who were missing have now been accounted for. But what the damage that was caused in just over an hour last night will be felt by people here for many years to come.
Sophie, thank you very much. Our correspondent Sophie Long there reporting from Mississippi. A former MI5 spy whose secret meeting with the IRA helped to bring peace to Northern Ireland after decades of violence has broken his silence. The man known as Robert has spoken to the BBC about how he defied orders in the mid-1990s, acting without the government's knowledge. Peter Taylor reports.
By the early 1990s, more than 3,000 people had been killed on all sides in what was known as the Troubles. The continuing violence was fed by one question: should Northern Ireland remain in the United Kingdom or become part of a united Ireland? When peace finally came with the Good Friday Agreement, I was convinced that an MI5 secret agent had played a vital role in helping to make it happen. He ran a top-secret back channel between the British government and the leadership of the IRA. I finally tracked him down, but following MI5's rules, he lied to me and said he wasn't the man I was looking for. Then, astonishingly, in 2021, I received a letter.
Dear Mr. Taylor, you will no doubt be surprised to hear from me after so many years. For a variety of reasons, I could now give you some background which might fill in some gaps.
Robert was due to meet senior Republicans, but the government cancelled the meeting after IRA bombs in Warrington killed 2 children. Robert disobeyed orders, sensing that despite its campaign, the IRA was looking for peace. At the meeting, he gave them an extraordinary prediction.
The final solution is union. It's going to happen anyway. This island will be as one. Is that what you said?
I must have done.
That's what's in the minute that
But that's if they wrote it down, then I'm, it seems quite likely.
But you had no authority to say that.
No.
And what you said flew directly in the face of what British government policy was.
Yes.
Those words were absolutely crucial because it appeared that behind the scenes, the British government was secretly working towards a united Ireland, the IRA's goal, but to Unionists, treachery. But in the autumn of 1993, with no sign of the violence ending, Robert's secret mission was exposed. He resigned from MI5. The operation looked like a failure. But that's not the end of the story. The IRA still had a desire to carry on discussing a way forward, remembering Robert's words, "The final solution is union. This island will be as one." I believe that Robert's words helped pave the way for the ceasefire and ultimately the Good Friday Agreement of 1998. It also meant that an uncountable number of lives were saved.
Looking back, it's a degree of pride that I've played a small part in history, done some good in the world.
Peter Taylor, BBC News.
And you can watch Peter's full story on the BBC iPlayer. Russia has announced plans to station tactical nuclear weapons on the territory of its neighbour Belarus. President Putin said Russia would finish construction of a storage facility in Belarus for tactical nuclear weapons by July the 1st. He indicated a few months ago that some Belarusian military planes were being re-equipped to potentially carry nuclear missiles. 2 teenagers have appeared in court charged with murdering a 16-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in Northampton. Rohan Shand died in Kingsthorpe on Wednesday. Angus Crawford reports.
Rohan Shand, just 16, known as Fred to his friends and family, stabbed to death. Police say some kind of incident took place here in Kingsthorpe at about 3:30 on Wednesday afternoon, and Rohan received a single stab wound to the chest. He died later from his injury. Initially, there were 4 arrests. 2 men were released without charge, but today 2 boys aged 14 and 16 appeared before magistrates charged with murder. The teenagers can't be named for legal reasons and have been remanded until Monday, when there'll be another hearing at Northampton Crown Court. A community which has lost one of its own, trying to support each other.
The young ones have been coming and they are absolutely devastated. They're devastated and shocked, and you know, the church, the community, all we just want to come together and you know, be there for this.
There's been an online appeal to help Rowan's family. So far it's raised more than £19,000. Angus Crawford, BBC News, Northampton.
The government is preparing to announce the use of ferries to accommodate migrants who've crossed the channel on small boats. The announcement could come as soon as next week. Our political correspondent Ian Watson is here with me. What do we know about this, Ian?
Well, the government's been under some pressure, as you know, Rita, from not least from its own MPs, actually, to try to get the cost of hotel accommodation down. So they've been looking at alternatives. And some of the people who are going to be coming here in small boats will be now housed on another form of vessel, on ferries. But in addition to that, the government, possibly by the end of next week too, are going to confirm the use of 2 military bases to house migrants as well. Now, at this stage, the thing is, there are around 50,000 people in hotels who've come to the UK. The military bases between them will accommodate between 3,000 and 4,000 people. So you can see this will not be a solution in itself to getting rid of hotel use.
Ian, many thanks. The Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has been fined almost £2,000 for speeding. Mr Burnham was caught driving at 78 miles per hour on a section of the M62 motorway where there was a reduced limit of 40 miles per hour. In a statement, he admitted he was going too fast. Now let's take a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Sunday with Laura Kunsberg.
Interest rates up, inflation up and living standards down. So tomorrow morning, we're going to ask a big question. When will you feel better off? I'll be joined by the Cabinet Minister, Michael Gove, and Lucy Powell from Labour. And we'll hear the astonishing story of one journalist who escaped Putin's Russia. Hope to see you at 9 in the morning, right here on BBC One.
Time for all the sport now. Here's Lizzie Greenwood-Hughes at the BBC Sports Centre. Lizzie.
Thank you, Rita. Good evening. It's been a good day for Scotland and Wales in their opening qualifying matches for Euro 2024. Scotland beat Cyprus at home and Wales salvaged a late draw in Croatia. Joe Linsky reports.
They still have the sound, they still have the spirit. But this year for Wales, their key man is missing. This was their first match since Gareth Bale retired. Without him, they faced Croatia, the World Cup semi-finalists. Kramaric! Who at home in Split found the gaps in Wales' defence. For so long that goal looked enough, but with one long throw, Wales found the extraordinary.
And they've equalised!
A late equaliser through Nathan Broadhead. 18 years old, he plays for League One Ipswich Town. In life after their leader, a debut hero had emerged, and Wales showed they're still resilient. Scotland too looked to start on a hopeful note. Their first match was must-win against their group's lowest-ranked side. But John McGinn broke through Cyprus and more goals came late on. Scott McTominay scored twice and Scotland won 3-0. With Spain to come next, greater tests are coming. But Scotland, like Wales, have made a start and made a sound. Joe Linsky, BBC News.
It's Women's Football Weekend with some of the WSL games in Premier League stadia, including Manchester United, who played at Old Trafford, where nearly 28,000 fans saw them beat West Ham 4-0 to go top of the table ahead of Chelsea, who have 2 games in hand. Earlier, Arsenal thrashed Tottenham. England kicked off their defence of the Women's Six Nations rugby with a demolition of Scotland. They scored 10 tries in the 58-7 win. Earlier, Wales also thrashed Ireland. Joe Curry reports.
England v Scotland may have been the headline, but this was all about saying goodbye to one of the greats of the game. Red Roses captain Sarah Hunter calling time on her career after this, her 141st cap, and fittingly in the city of her birth. Emotions settled, England started strongly as Claudia MacDonald battled her way to the line. And all too quickly, England turned that strong start into a rampage. MacDonald hitting the gas with the pick of the tries as the Red Roses went in at the break, 31 points ahead, and with a bonus point already in the bag. 5 tries for England in the first half, 5 more to come in the second, including a hat-trick for Marley Packer. The crowd were already on their feet, but this raised the roof. The end of an era. Hunter signing off her career just as she played it, with a smile on her face. She proudly watched on as the Red Roses finished the job.
Devastating and dominant. England proving once again why they are favourites for this title. For Hunter, well, it was simply the fairy tale ending. Whilst in Cardiff, there was a dream start for Wales.
A record home crowd of almost 5,000 watched as they thrashed Ireland. Wales skipper Hannah Jones producing a stunner of a try that earned a bonus point in a 31-5 victory. So Wales showing that they too know how to dominate a side and could prove tricky opponents for England, who now have to face life without a legend. Jo Curry, BBC News.
That's it from me. There's more on our website. Back to you, Rita.
Lizzie, many thanks. Now, earlier this week, we reported on the story of Flight Sergeant Peter Brown, who served in the RAF during the Second World War and who died at the age of 96 alone. After an appeal for any surviving relatives to come forward for his funeral service, organisers say they've been inundated with requests from the public to attend, and plans are now afoot to move the service to a larger venue in Westminster to honour him. Well, you can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. That is all from me. Good night.